Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for being live, and we're going to work through some technical difficulties. I want to start with this, though. I want to bring you back a little bit in my life to August 28th, 1992. I woke up in the morning, and I just had this knot in the pit of my stomach. I was thinking about the day. Maybe if you guys can relate to this, when you've maybe had to walk in to tell a boss, somebody that you've just absolutely loved working with, and they've mentored you, but you're leaving the organization. It's one of those kind of conversations, or maybe that crucial conversation you need to have with somebody in your family where you know that there's going to be kind of emotions involved. Well, I woke up with that, and I got up, I got dressed for work, I zipped up my flight suit, and I stepped out of my stateroom and walked down a passageway. And at the end of this passageway, I opened a big hatch and I stepped out into this grate, and 60 feet below me, the ocean was crashing and going past me. And I took 3 steps to the right, and I stepped up on the flight deck of the USS Independence. And as soon as I did that, this hot wind, it was over 100 degrees. It was 30 miles an hour. Remember, this is 7:30 in the morning or so. And that air was just thick with jet exhaust and hydraulic smell. And that knot in the pit of my stomach just got tighter. And I looked across the flight deck for my office for the day. And here is what I saw. And man, I got to tell you something. It just got real for me. Because today was going to be the first day that I actually flew into combat, something I've been preparing for almost 3 years to do. And as I looked at that jet, it was loaded with live missiles on every single station. And like, what do you do when you're in this situation and you don't know that if you're prepared to go do that next thing, to do that next step? So what I did is I actually just fell back on my training, and I started going through my checklist and pre-flighting this airplane, and I crawl up in the cockpit, and as those engines start roaring to life, I'm alone there actually for a little bit with my self-doubt. There's a lot going through my head right now. And as they taxi me forward toward this catapult, and we're ready to go. Now what happens is, as you get taxied into the catapult, it locks you into what's called the shuttle. That airplane at full power will not budge an inch. And I look down at the flight deck officer next to me, and he gives me a signal to go to full power. And they're running all over the jet, and they're making sure everything is okay. And then I look down at the flight deck officer, if you can see my little video here, and he gives me this symbol. And that means to go to zone 5 afterburner. And you take those throttles and you push them outboard and all the way up, and these things light off. And now I'm burning 2,000 pounds of fuel per minute. And that airplane is rattling and shaking and humming. And I have to do one thing before the flight deck officer launches me, and that's look down at him and give him a salute. And I had one thought that went through my mind in that moment, clear as a bell. And what do you guys think it is? You guys have some great comments in there. I was not thinking good morning or good to see you, not at all. Here is what, and good to see you guys also, by the way. Here's what went through my head. Don't launch. Oh my God, don't launch. I am not ready for this. Don't launch. Evidently, I looked down and saluted the flight deck officer because boom, 0 to 150 miles an hour in 2.4 seconds. And I was off to join my flight to head into over Iraq, which turned into a 6.8-hour mission, which is the longest I'd ever been strapped into an ejection seat in my entire life. Now, I want you guys to think about those times in your life that you were required to step into a situation that you did not feel prepared for. I mean, it could be a business decision. It could be in a relationship, in a marriage. It could be going through a significant health challenge. I don't know about you guys, but man, there are times when I just want to hit pause. When we were in the military, we had something called a training time out. When somebody did something really stupid or really dangerous, training time out, we would just stop and debrief it and go back and see, hey, how can we do this better next time? Unfortunately, sometimes in life, you don't have that opportunity for a training timeout. So what prepares us for that? Here's what I thought of as I'm flying and climbing away. There was men and women in my life who saw something in me through my whole life, leading up to flying an F-14 into combat, who saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. Dan Kane, I don't know if he's on here live. I know he's part of the group. Call sign Darth for Darth Vader. Trust me, you did not want to be on Darth's bad side, but he's also one of the most amazing leaders and men that I've ever been around. He pushed me to do things in that airplane. He was a backseater of Rio, to do things in that airplane that I did literally at the time did not think I could do. My dad, my wife, there were so many men and women. I started thinking as I'm flying up toward combat, like, you know what, actually, I am ready. Because that day, every decision that I made, somebody's life could depend on it. And talk about trust. The people around me, the decisions my wingmen made, the Air Force, the people on the ground, my life could also depend on that. And so it was incredible, man. I talk about being on purpose, talk about being fully alive. Every single day of my life, I was being stretched just a little bit. Maybe you guys could even throw in the comments if you're live streaming here on the Facebook group. Just, if you can relate to that, if you've had a time in your life where, man, I just got to press through. But here's what happened is, so we did a combat cruise during Operation, right at the end of Operation Desert Storm, and then we came back for Operation Southern Watch, and we get back to our squadron. This is almost 2 years into my tour here, and I get called into my commanding officer's office. It was no longer our leader Darth. It was somebody else. I don't want to identify him, but he had a call sign based on his anger issues. I'll just say that. And he was proud of this persona that he had built. He was one of the most challenging human beings I've ever worked with in my life. And I get a call. Rammer. That's what they called me. That was my call sign. Rammer, get down to the commanding officer, get down to skipper's stateroom right away. I'm like, oh man. What did I do? What happened? Did I leave classified material out? Did I break a flight rule? Did I get reported? Like, I'm thinking absolute worst case scenario. It was one of those calls, like it felt like, my career's over and I had no idea what I'd done. I don't know if you guys have ever had a situation like that. It's like being called to the principal's office and you're trying to figure out how to make an excuse on the way there, but you didn't know what you did yet. I don't know, man. That's me. Okay, so I knock on the door and skipper says, sit down, Rammer. He goes, so me and everybody, we've talked and I got something to tell you. I'm like, oh man. He goes, you're going to Top Gun. You're the one from the whole, you're going to go represent the entire air wing. I was literally, it's like my body flooded with endorphins, adrenaline, and I don't know whatever brain chemicals else there are, but they were all there. And I floated out of there. This is in the middle of the week. Now, the next weekend, guys, I was playing softball. And I got hit with a line, and I hear, watch out! And I turn, and I look, and a line drive drills me in the right eye. I had orbital blowout fracture, blew out the back of the right eye socket. I had nerve damage. And I was done. I lost my medical. It was exactly 1 year to the day of that accident that the Navy discharged me. And I'm out on the street. And I am completely lost. I mean, what happens? Have you guys ever experienced this? Where everything about who you are, your identity, is ripped away. My identity was being a Navy fighter pilot, being a naval officer, being part of an elite unit, my career, your purpose. My purpose since I was a kid. I wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to defend this country. My dad fought in World War II. My grandpa fought in World War I. as this patriotic spirit was just part of our family. And I felt it was my pure purpose to be in this role as a warrior. And now it's gone. And the only job I can get is selling cell phones as a sales rep. And I'm literally going through neighborhoods, knocking on doors, hoping somebody's home so I could sell a cell phone to pay my bills. And the sounds of my dreams are flying over my head. Back into Miramar. I was literally, that was hard, guys. I was this close to ending it. In 7 months, I had 6 jobs. If you looked at me funny, I'd quit. I was used to a culture of integrity and excellence, and you help each other. And even if you don't like that guy sitting next to you, you trust them and you respect their capabilities, and you guys get along. You might not go out and get a beer together all the time, but man, there was no animosity because I had to depend on you, and I couldn't find that out in the world. But it was during that period of time that a friend of mine, Jeff Saavedra, and Jeff, I don't know if you're on. If you are, dude, you are amazing. I met Jeff in a bookstore, Barnes & Noble. Talk about taking an interest on other people just for no reason other than to serve them. I was looking for a business book. And we started up a conversation, and Jeff started mentoring me, trying to ask me what I'm good at and what my dreams are and what do I want to do next and what could I possibly bring from my experience in the military. Remember, I was a pilot that couldn't fly, and I had an electrical engineering degree that I couldn't use. And then he introduced me to his mentor and his mentor. So John Clark and Clark Sneekluth, who might be on here, and John Brenner, Jeff Saavedra, you 3 absolutely changed my life. You got me on track. These guys led me to my faith. They showed us how to have a great marriage. And it was through this amazing mentorship and learning skills that I started to see a sense of purpose again. I started to rebuild a different identity. It wasn't based on everything external. And I moved up to Minnesota to start a company with a friend of mine, man. And it was rough. I was the best man in his wedding. He was the best man in my wedding. And we started a company together. And man, it is tight. Like I was earning these, what I thought were big commissions. And I had not been paid because we have all these cash flow problems. And I was a minority owner in the business, so I couldn't make any decisions. And we get invited to a birthday party at his house. And we literally have no money. I remember the day I was talking to Donna about it this morning. So I just want to make sure I'm remembering this right. But I remember digging through every cushion and every couch cushion and chair in the house. Did we do that to try to find enough money that day to go buy a little bit of gas to get out to his house and buy a toy? We went to I remember I was so upset. I'm like, I got to buy a $20 toy for somebody's birthday, and we can't even buy formula for our kids. I mean, I've never been there before. It was hard, having been a naval officer, to be at this place financially just a few years after getting out of the military. And I get to his house, everybody. Beautiful house. I look in the backyard, and there's cranes and bulldozers. And they'd literally probably just put in a couple $100,000 for the landscape. And I hadn't been paid in 3 months and was owed back pay, and I still didn't get paid for another month. And what do you do now? Now I feel like I not only have to start over, but I just got betrayed by somebody I thought I could trust with everything. We've probably all been there. We've all had either our purpose or our dream ripped away. Circumstances have changed. Somebody has completely maybe betrayed our trust in a small level or a big level. But man, none of it is fun. So then I start working 90 hours a week for a company. I start my own data mining technology company with just 3 other people. 3 years in, 90 hours a week, we get to the point where on paper we had grown and grown and grown. To over $1 million a month in sales. And on paper, I was worth millions. I mean, this is walkaway money. Don and I were so excited. And then the internet bubble pops, and 90 days later, I'm on the street. Nothing, in debt, because everything I owned, I actually I invested in this company. I'm like, seriously? Like, again? I mean, like, God, like clear the way, clear the path, something. But it was in that moment, without any mentorship or any decision, I made a decision because I remember it very clearly. And that was, you know what, if it's going to be, it's up to me. Maybe you guys have heard some of those self-help mantras. Well, man, I bought all into that. I said, you know what, I am just going to outwork everybody around me. And I got to tell you, my faith changed. Everything changed after this series. And then I got into business. I started building and building and building, and started having some pretty significant successes. And here's what happened is, I'm going to fast forward. So this was 2001 when that happened. Okay. Yes, Patty Ann, it is amazing how much we learn and grow in these valleys, you know, especially with hindsight, right? Looking back in hindsight on things that have happened to us in the moment. Sometimes I'm not as smart as I'd like to be, but I have developed the skill of delayed intelligence. How's that? I want to fast forward you a little bit to 2011, because 2011, I'd grown and grown. I went up through the management team of a technology company, was able to build $100 million business unit. It was an incredible run. Then I'm like, you know what? I'm working these crazy hours, and I become like my dad. My dad worked 6 days a week. I did not have. He was an amazing person, but I didn't have a great relationship with him when I was younger, just because he was never there. He was so busy. And I realized I'd become my dad. I was working 6 days a week, traveling constantly. And I get a call one day, and this whole story's in the book in detail, but from a recruiter. As a matter of fact, the guy that I use to hire people for my team, on my senior leadership team. He goes, John, hey, I know things are going really good at your company, but let me run something by you. Man, he caught me in the perfect moment. But that led to a 6-month process, 13 interviews, and I left my industry. And I had to tell my boss, that guy who mentored me and trusted me and was grooming me for that next promotion, that I'm leaving. And I went to Wall Street, to a big Wall Street firm. And I built a big practice, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars I brought in. And they moved me from Minneapolis to Denver. But I wanted to build something on my own. I just felt like something was missing. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. Like, you're working, you do what you feel is like your best work. You're showing up early. I'd started a couple nonprofits. I was on a couple other boards. I didn't have time to coach my kids, but I never missed a game unless I was out of town. And I even tried to not do that. And I would go to bed at midnight and get up at 5 a.m. I'd sleep 5. And that was a badge of honor. I was always tired. What I realized was, in that, I was no longer, looking back on it now, talk about delayed intelligence, I was not connected to any kind of sense of purpose the way I define it today. You know what my purpose was back then? Was to build my bank account, maximize my income, be recognized in the community. Let me ask you guys, does that sound like anything to you that's just like this exciting, driving purpose? What was my identity at that time? My identity had gone back to kind of that comfort zone of being given to me by everybody outside of me. Looking back on it now, I realize when you are disconnected from who you really are, that best version of yourself, and you're not clear on what your purpose, your calling is in this season right now, man, it is so easy for things to just drift off. Because think about this. If I took off on a jet right now and I wanted to fly to London and I was just a couple degrees off, doesn't sound like much, right? Like, by the time I get from here to Chicago, I'm only maybe 50, 60 miles. That's not a hard correction. But by the time I get to London, I could be thousands of miles off, not even anywhere near an airfield, run out of gas and crash into the ocean. Those small little missteps over time just lead us off into a place that we never intended to go. And then we don't have the resources to get back where we wanted to go if we even remember what that was in the first place. So here's where I was in that moment. I was struggling, man. I was resentful of my wife because guess what? It was her dream to be a stay-at-home mom. It was her dream to homeschool the kids. It was her dream to live in a nice house and be able to take a couple of vacations every year. And I felt like, you know what? I had created a lifestyle for her that I don't get to participate in. Right? Because I'm putting in all these hours and I'm the only one making money, and there should be more gratitude. There should be more whatever. I don't know. But think about it. When you're not doing things for the right reasons, all of a sudden, I was the reason that was introducing tension into our marriage. And I'll never forget this, Don. I know you will never forget this either. When we had some marriage challenges about 7-8 years in, we went to see our pastor. And man, he just leaned forward and looked me in the eye and he said, "Hey, John, if there are any challenges in your marriage, there's only one thing you have to do." I'm like, "Oh, good. The one thing. Thank you." He goes, "You, the man, all you have to do is look in the mirror because it's your fault." I'm like, "Dude, that was not cool because you also said that in front of my wife." What? Here's what he was telling me. And I was not ready for the message at that point, that I had to take personal responsibility for how I showed what I did, my tone of voice, the emotions that I allowed to come up in any given moment. When I interacted with somebody in the family, or I'm driving home, trying to process from work to home, and I started having these resentful thoughts in, maybe ingratitude, because then that colored up how I showed up, and I walked in the door grumpy. I mean, who wants to be around that person? And I got to tell you, taking personal responsibility for that stuff, my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, was a huge first step. But I wasn't ready then. So I want to share with you guys, if you haven't heard about it, but I got involved in politics. I started the Colorado Faith and Freedom Coalition with Ralph Reed. Through that, I met somebody who was on the board of Family Talk that is run by Dr. Dobson, and they were doing a retreat up in Montana, and I'd never met Dr. Dobson, and I said, this is going to be kind of a group of interesting people, and I'd love to go. So I fly up to Montana on a Thursday, and on Friday, we're going to get on horseback and ride through this property and go have lunch. And I'm the first one saddled. And so all of a sudden this horse starts trotting out into this big open area, and then he bolts and he takes off, and I'm laying flat on my back, and his rump is pounding me in the shoulder blades. And I thought for sure I was going to flip off the back of this horse and get kicked in the head and get killed. And I did the one thing that I thought to do in the moment, and that is to squeeze with my legs as hard as I can. Maybe you guys can even put in the chat, what do you think happens when you squeeze with your legs as hard as you can on a horse? Now that is telling this guy to go faster. And man, he responded. He found another gear. That guy lit the afterburners, and I had never been on a horse other than a trail ride, and we're going faster, and we're going faster, and we're going faster, and I'm trying to get him to turn. And he won't turn. I'm trying to get him to turn, and he won't turn. And I start literally panicking. Man, I've flown in combat. I've raised teenagers. I've landed on aircraft carriers at night in pitching seas. And literally nothing prepared me for this. My brain just started absolutely spinning out of control. I got to jump off this horse. If I jump off this horse, I'm going to die. And if I die, I'll break my neck. And I look up, and we're heading straight at a set of steel corral paddocks with 3-inch rolled beams. If you actually look at this picture right here, those are the beams that went all the way down to where those paddocks are. That's me on that horse. That horse's name is Leo. And coming into the fence, he bucked so hard, he flipped over and he landed on his side rump first and slammed into the fence. And when he did that, I went Superman into that top 3-inch rolled steel beam. And it crushed the entire left side of my skull. I broke 8 teeth. I broke every bone in my skull except my jaw and my right cheekbone and my nose, I think. Everything else was broken. The base of the skull, the back of the skull, everything inside. I broke my neck. I shattered my shoulder. And the next bar down crushed the left side of my rib cage, and one of the broken ribs punctured my left lung. And just to kind of put some things in context here, I was in ICU for the next 5 weeks. I had 2 craniotomies. They had to take my skull off and fix everything twice. After ICU, I was transferred down here to Denver to Craig Hospital, which is a specialty hospital that I was there for 20 months with a severe traumatic brain injury. During that entire process, I had over 23 surgeries and procedures. And we heard from multiple doctors. We've even gone back and talked with them and confirmed what happened to me because of the brain damage was so severe, was not survivable. Okay. All this has been rebuilt with titanium. There's over 6 plates here. This has all been rebuilt with titanium. There's an implant here and an implant here just to put some shape to my face. And just remind me, we went in to go see the plastic surgeon because I was a little crooked. And we're in Dr. Mario's office. Yeah, I'm going to tell the story, honey. And so I don't know if you guys have ever had plastic surgery. You know, if you have, you don't have to post about it unless you want to, I guess. But anyway, there's a picture of my face up there, and they're doing the grease marker like, hey, you have to do this, and we're going to cut here, and we're going to pull this and tuck this and do all these different things. And as he's explaining the whole thing, Donna, who's awesome, my wife, she takes a picture of Brad Pitt out of her purse and puts it up next to my photo up here. And the doctor just starts cracking up. Of course, we're all cracking up. And I said, okay, doc, now I know you can't do that, but can you make the whole thing just a little prettier? And he goes, no, I'm not that good. So we had to have a lot of fun with this because it was a lot of ups and downs. Donna leaving what she was doing to be my caregiver. But I want to bring you back to that accident. I wake up on the ground into more pain that I can even describe to you. People are holding me down, my head, my shoulders, my hips. And have you ever heard that saying, God won't give you more than you can handle? I'm here to tell you it's not true. This was beyond anything I could ever handle on myself. Fake news. Yeah, honey, you're so cute. I'm sure she's talking about the Brad Pitt picture. All of a sudden, one of the guys from the outside, the pain, the panic, the fear, everything was overwhelming. And one of the guys shared with me later, he saw me just relax, like I was sinking into the ground, like he thought he just watched me die. It was in that moment, I was standing in God's presence. He was right next to me. And as soon as I felt it, man, it was just wave after wave after wave. It had a physical force to it, like being at the edge of the ocean and the waves are coming up, washing over your body in a rhythm, but it was pure and unconditional love. I had never felt unconditional love. I had always imparted all of my human relations, betrayal, the fact that I had to earn an attaboy, earn a hug, earn things like that of all these people in my life. I mean, it's just human nature, but I had imparted that on who I thought God really was behind the curtain. And I was struck in that moment that unconditional love was for me personally. I mean, this was a personal relationship, and that anything I'd ever done in the past, good, bad, or otherwise, wasn't even relevant. And what happened was then God spoke to me, and we can definitely go in depth as much of this as you guys would like to at some point. But what he said to me was, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord. And he said, John, I'm going to heal you. I was given this amazing second chance. And then he said it with like this joy, like the Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. I've often wondered about that, right? I've always thought that would be kind of a stern deal. But as soon as he said that, I knew my left eye was going to be completely blind. And it is. All the bones behind the left eye socket shattered and severed the optic nerve. So my left eye is not even connected to my brain. And I want to share one in the next 5 weeks. And how does this all relate to purpose and identity? Because it's absolutely essential as part of my journey. Because the next 5 weeks in ICU, I had post-traumatic amnesia. I had 3 memories. One memory that stands out above all of them is Dr. Van Gilder walks in. Now, I know the name because I remember it being stitched in red letters on his white lab coat. It said neurosurgery. And he's standing on my right-hand side. I'm here in the middle in this hospital bed, 7 IVs in my arms. And my wife is over here. It's just the 3 of us. And he's talking about the craniotomy. He's got to basically take off my skull to do all of these things. What I'm hearing is the chances of me surviving are not great. And I remember him saying the chances of me being the person that Donna remembers are not good either. But then he looked over at her and said, "Hey, Donna, do you have a will and a living will?" Wow, that's quite a question. And we had just redone our estate planning, and we were supposed to literally sign those documents when I got back from this trip. And Donna, I heard her kind of almost stuttering, sharing that story with him. And he said, "Hey, listen, you know what? I would be much more comfortable if we had both of those. Can you go talk to the attorney, have that FedExed up here? We can wait till the morning, but no longer." And Donna leaves the room, and the doctor leaves the room, and I'm alone in the room. And so even though I just had this amazing spiritual experience, God told me he was going to heal me, I was convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt of one thing. And that is next weekend's my funeral. And I started playing the tape. I started imagining all these amazing people in my life rolling up to the front of church and saying all these awesome things. I mean, that's what you do at a funeral, right? I mean, you say nice things, or you don't get invited. You're not going to speak. You know what I'm saying? But then I started thinking, hey, what are they going to be thinking about at the back of the church when they're all rooting around for the chicken salad and potatoes or whatever might be back there? What would the real conversations be? What had I meant to these folks that would say nice things at the front? I started thinking about, hey, what would they think about a year or 2 later? And I started thinking, then I went to, okay, is Donna and the boys, are they going to be okay? And I started thinking of inheritance, right? What is an inheritance, right? An inheritance is something that I leave to somebody, right? I'm giving it to you. Here's money, here's the house, here's a car. But I started thinking about something that was much more important. I said, what legacy has my life added up to? What have I left in each one of my boys, John, Michael, Matthew? What have I left in my wife, Donna? What have I left in this world? Had I lived a life so the use of my life would outlive my life? Had I lived a life so the use of my life would outlive my life? And I got to tell you, folks, I was convicted. And I saw what could be. And as I recovered, it became my quest to find my purpose, to figure out, why did I get this second chance? What does this second chance mean for me? Am I special? Is this unique? I mean, like, what's this all about? Here's what I've come to the conclusion is I'm not special, nor am I unique, because God loves every single person, regardless of what you're doing right now, what you have done in your background, absolutely the same. And what I didn't realize, it was an amazing friend of mine, Mark Sanborn, as I was sharing this with him and really just trying to put some understanding around this. He said, John, I would argue this, that you know what? Every single morning when every one of us wakes up, we have a second chance. The question is, do we recognize it? I'm like, Mark, you're so right. Because I look at everything that's happened after the accident, as I've rebuilt my life, connected to I'm not going to say the best version of myself. I'm still on a journey, but a much better version of myself. I know exactly what my purpose is, and we are on point. I have been able through this to completely rewrite the script of my life into one that is, man, fully alive, right? If fully alive is like a 10 out of 10, like, dude, you are rocking. You don't want to go to bed at night. You can't wait to get up in the morning. Nothing rattles you. That's a 10, and a 1 is barely hanging on because I've been there. Man, I'm up somewhere between an 8 and a 9. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, like full on where I was before the accident, because I'm an engineer and I calculated it. And I'll be showing that how you guys, I did that tomorrow, because I think actually having our reference of where I really am is important. But I was a 2.1 on that scale of 1 to 10. Okay. So coming out of this and working with coaches, what I found was I was constantly looking for, in the past, what is my purpose? What is my calling? I had a constant anxiety about the work that I was doing. Decisions felt like they were absolutely monumentous. I always felt like I was just plagued with a little bit of doubt and uncertainty. And when I wasn't connected to that purpose, I just didn't see what is it that I'm doing, my work that I'm spending so much time at, that is actually meaningful, that's contributing to anything other than my career and my paycheck. I mean, I'm just being real. I really had a hard time connecting those dots, but I hadn't really thought consciously about it, because I was not, as you guys can tell, I was not on purpose. I did not know who the best version of myself was. I didn't have a big vision that was driving me forward. I wasn't on mission like I was back when I was in the military. And here's the deal. When you do not have your own plan and you do not have your own goal, you are by default, you are an asset in somebody else's plan, helping them to get to a place that's important for them. Hear me. If you don't have your own plan and you don't know where you're going, by default, you're going to be carried along by somebody else's dream, serving them to get to their dream. And I think that's why, for me, things were so out of line. Now, as I recovered, I'll never forget, it was 2 years into this accident. I'm recovering from another surgery, a reconstructive shoulder surgery. I know some of you guys have had that, the rotator cuff. It's not really comfortable at all. But I'm sitting in bed and I'm reading, and I just hear this voice speak to me and says, John, I want you to use this life I've given you to equip and empower leaders to work in my kingdom. Like, that's awesome. Okay, like, hey, can you give me page 2? How does this work? Because remember, I have been working for 2 years on understanding 2 big questions, right? And they all surrounded around my faith in True North and who I really was and who I was created to be. And here's what I found for me. And I've seen this in thousands of people that I've worked with. When you work on understanding not who you are and who you see in the mirror, but who that best version is, and you take steps close to that sense of purpose, all of a sudden you just get clarity on it. Okay. And now here's what happened. It's really cool, because being around people and associates and friends it's so meaningful. One of my buddies, I don't know if you're on, Roy Clark. If you are, throw something there in the chat. I know he's been busy, crazy busy. He and I were doing some coaching work together, and we're up in his office, and I show up and I'm, hey, what do you want to work on today? He's like, no, today's all about you, buddy. I'm like, no, man, I'm the coach. What do you want to work on? He's like, no, really. We've been able to get all these results. Things are happening. Good stuff's happening. And he went up to his whiteboard. He's one of the busiest guys I know, and erased everything on this entire whiteboard and said, we're going to dig through. And there is a process that you've been walking me through. Because I wasn't aware of it. And I bet a lot of you out there right now, it doesn't matter whether you're a coach, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a business leader, whether you run an HVAC company, there are things that you're doing that are really good, and they're foundational, and they're things that you can build on. In those things are some unbelievable clues to who you are at your best and what that purpose is. Okay? We're going to be talking about that more, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. here's the deal. He made me sit down and actually walk through what has kind of been our process. And I realized, you know what, that everything that was on this whiteboard was the process that I went through personally, that I was guided through with my faith, with coaches, with mentors, with my pastor at many different points. And I just synthesized it all together in kind of this process. And that's what I had been doing with clients, which I wasn't even honestly aware of. I was just showing up in a certain way at certain times and to be able to do this. Now, here's what happened is, and then I sat down, I was at a retreat a few weeks later with an amazing friend and mentor of mine, Donna St. Louis. And I shared this with her because she says, John, you have a process. You need to understand what it is. But it was out of these two friends taking time to sow into my life that this became possible. And I want to tell you guys, that future, that thing that you're really excited about, everything starts with hope. It starts with positive imagination. It was in those two meetings 2 years ago that the idea that I could have a book was even birthed. Because an idea happens, something that happens, it always has twice. It manifests twice. A, when you first conceive it, and then it turns into this. Think about this. This is an iPhone. This has changed the world and how we do things. This was an idea in Steve Jobs' head at one point, and he went to his engineers and said, hey, what if? That idea, honestly, has changed the world. Okay. So I want to share with you guys the analogy that I shared with Donna after I'd really kind of brought this together. And this is really the framework of the book and the framework of what we're going to be talking about the next 3 days. Every single day in here, I'm going to be giving you some just little teeny pieces of homework that I know will help you. If you never do anything else except join this over the next 5 days, it's going to be, my goal is that it's just a huge blessing for you and gives you that clarity for you on that next small step that you need to take. Okay, so I want you to think about this. This is an aircraft cockpit. You're flying along. Last time any of you guys were ever on an airplane, and what happens is that crew. I'm also trying to look at some of the chat, the texts over here. Let's see. Actually, they are showing up here. I didn't even know it. Oh, that's cool. Look it. I can bring the text. I didn't know I could do this. So hey, look it. You know what? Every day we're just learning something new. Where we're just gonna. Oh, there's Miss Donna. Okay. Okay, so this is cool. So now I can actually watch as you guys post, and I can actually even pull them in, especially if you guys have any questions. So just let me know. Okay. Here's from my buddy Amy. I'd love for you guys to share this. Please do that. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. We're think about this cockpit. What percent of time, maybe you guys can just throw it in the chat, do you guys think that airplane is flying along and you're sitting in your chair and it's perfectly on course when you guys are flying to your destination? Does anybody have a guess? I can tell you right now, because I know the numbers. Normally it's 100, it's 90. Some of the skeptical folks are maybe 70. I want to tell you right now, that aircraft is only on course less than 3% of the time. You got 95%, 1%, it's not on course, 20%. Yeah, less than 3% of the time. Why is that? Think about this. When you feel turbulence, those are massive wind gusts outside the airplane, pushing it off course, and the engines are turning, and people are walking up and down the aisle, and they're going to everybody's going to the bathroom at the same time. All those things throw an airplane off course, and not corrected will just drift off or go up or go down. And our life is the exact same way. Just like a pilot, we have to constantly make course corrections. Now, I'll tell you what, as you guys have heard my story, I didn't know how to make course corrections. What do I correct to? What is my reference? Why am I correcting? Because I lived under what I call the tyranny of they. They told me what success looks like for me. They told me how to act. They told me what was expected. They told me what my values should be in a given situation for that culture. We have this amazing culture, Tom, but you got to show up like this. I'm like, okay, I'm all in. Who do I got to be today? How do I maximize my comp plan? Man, I got to tell you what, the gap for me was massive. And when I am allowing myself to be subjected to the tyranny of they, what that means is I have not taken personal responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings. I have not connected to a sense of identity, because here is what I know. You can write this down. Your inner game determines your outer game. Hear me? Your inner game determines your outer game. You want to change what's going on in your world? You start first right here. Who's ever heard of that saying? Sow a thought and you reap an action. Sow an action and you reap a habit. Sow a habit and you reap a character. And you sow a character and you reap a destiny. You want to change your destiny? The only thing you have to do is go all the way back to the beginning. Change your thinking. All you have to do. Change your thinking. Now, how do we do that, though? It's a little bit easier said than done. But here's what I found. That autopilot that's working that airplane. You guys that are afraid to fly in, trust me, don't worry about it. That autopilot has to know three things and able to work. And the first one is it has to know what true north is. It has to have a navigational reference. So not only can it set a course, but it also can make a course correction. Now, for you personally, what is your true north? Have you ever thought about that? I'll tell you this. For me, it is my faith. And it is my understanding of really who I am. And that's the word identity. And we're going to dig into that over the next couple of days, is how do we get clear on that so that we can actually make decisions and choices and like have a framework on how to say yes and say no. Just remember, anything you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else in your life, even if you might not realize it. Okay. The next thing you do, think about this. After this, I have to go. I'm still on oxygen. I have to go see a pulmonologist. I'm going to National Jewish Health Center. I don't even know what they're going to do to me today. I'm not excited about it. But I'm going to go to my car and pull up my phone. And the first thing I'm going to do is pull up my app. And I'm going to type in what? The destination. Boom. That autopilot has to know where we're going or what the next waypoint is on our route to get to our destination. And we have to do the exact same thing in our own life. What is our destination? Do we have a worthwhile goal or dream that we're pursuing? Something that gets us up and we're excited. Folks, man, back when I was in the Navy, when I was in flight school, it was the hardest 3 years of my life. It was hard. Every day I knew that if I didn't do my best, I could get kicked out. Every flight had something called head work and air work that was great. And if I made a mistake, I could be kicked out. I knew that every day. But I was prepared. I had incredible mentorship. I knew where I was going and I knew what I needed to do each day in order to be able to move forward tomorrow. That was my focus. What is your own destination? We're going to be digging into that also. The other one is this, your present position. Now, I'm probably going to get a cancel. I'm going to probably be canceled by Waze, but who here uses Waze on their phone? It's my wife's favorite app. I hate it. Here's why. Every time I pull up Waze and I put in the address of where I want to go, it doesn't know where I am. And I'm saying always, right? It's more like 98% of the time. So, let's just be fair. It gives me the wrong turn out of the parking lot and I'm going the wrong way. And then all of a sudden I'm like 8 minutes behind and I'm going to be late for a meeting because this stupid app thought I was over here and I should have been over there. Can I tell you something? It is no different in your own life. You have to know where you are. Your passions, your values, your mindsets. how you think. We're going to be going through an exercise to show you how to put all of these together. Okay? Now, here's what happens is, and this is what we're going to be doing on Friday, but we're going to be digging into each one of these. But on Friday, there's a place called convergence. It is beautiful because as you start to get some awareness and clarity on these different areas of your life, right? Your identity, your self-talk, your beliefs, your values, your passions, your strengths, what you've done in the past, your successes, your failures, all these different things, okay? Convergence is where they all start to come together and they start to make sense. What that does is that begets action, because action, what I found was action begets clarity. Hear me now, because there was times in my life I would be totally stuck. I'd be like at a Y in the road. I'd be like, should I go right? Should I go left? Should I go right? Well, if I go right, this could happen. I go left. And I would sit there sometimes for years actually trying to figure out my purpose or what I should do or where am I actually going, because I was afraid of making a bad decision. Mostly because of what if they thought I made a bad decision? What if they made fun of me? What if they didn't approve of my choice? What if they think my priorities are off? But I got to tell you, when I am clear on who I am and I believe my priorities in prayer and in alignment with what God's telling me to do, that's just where I come from, okay? Then I take action. I don't wait for clarity. And what I found is it was not intuitive to me, but taking that action led to that clarity that I wanted. Now I'm going to tell you this. All of this takes change. And I love this quote. I've actually tried to figure out who first said it. I can't find it. I first heard it from my friend Ford Taylor. And that's this. And you guys can write this down. Change doesn't occur. Change does not occur until the pain of staying the same, right? You guys heard about some of the places I was in before the accident, other points in my life. The pain of staying the same exceeds that pain of change. So change isn't going to happen. I'm not going to have a better life. I'm not going to have different outcomes until I realize what I have today. And I have to be able to compare that, though, to something, right? What if I said, man, I want to have this amazing life? I want to show this to you guys, because this right here, when I got down to NAS Pensacola is in focus, there we go, in 1988, as I started flight school, I went and bought these wings from the exchange. And they sat on my desk next to me every day. I had not earned them yet. I did not put them on. I'll have to find the picture of Donna pinning these on my chest. But this was a symbol to me that I could not only do it. I laid awake envisioning flying this monster up here. I'd watched the movie Top Gun just to put myself in that place, because some days, man, it was hard. I lost friends. I went to some funerals. It was a rough road. Don and I, it was challenging. But I got to tell you what, I knew what I wanted. This was my symbol. And when my wife, Donna, she was my fiance when I started flight school, pinned this on my chest, it was one of the most brilliant moments of my day. And there's so much I learned actually looking back on why that was such a focus for me. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Everybody here, and we're going to post it. I want you to think about this question. We're just going to have a simple takeaway every day. I believe for you to start making progress, the only thing is you have to have a way to contrast what is life today and what life could be. We're going to start thinking that way. Okay? Anybody of you has been a coaching client of mine, this is a question that we have started with. So here's what I want you to do is answer this question, then in the group, go in the group, and I want you to go live and just share what it is you're celebrating, because trust me, I'm going to watch every single one of those, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help you move toward that and give you the tools to move toward that. And I want you to think about this. Let's say it's a year from now, and you're getting together, you and I are getting together for a cup of coffee, or you're with your best friend, or your wife, your husband, your business partner, whatever it is, somebody that's really important to you, you know who they are. And between now and a year from now, if you could wave a realistic magic wand, you didn't just win the lottery and you have $250 million to spend, right? But this is in your power, but just at the edge, like that stretch goal. What would you absolutely love to be sharing? Is it about the growth of your business? Is it about the money you've been able to give away? Is it the fact that you've been able to get out of debt, or a relationship's been completely repaired, or the fact that you've actually found your purpose and you're just so excited every morning getting up and this is what I'm doing? I want you to describe it and visualize it, because hope is our positive imagination, just like these wings. I had to visualize my wife pinning these on my chest because I did it. Okay? What is that for you? You can even put it in there. Dave, you're back. Awesome. So think about this. If you could wave that realistic magic wand, what would you be talking about in a year? And second part of that, if that were in place the way that you just shared, what would that mean to you personally? So here's what I want you to do. Think of that question. Everybody on, we've got a lot of people on. All right, if you could wave that realistic magic wand, what would you be speaking about in a year? And what would that mean to you personally? What makes that important? Because I want you to understand, in doing that, you're starting to tie where you want to go into something that's important for you emotionally. That's what allows the pain of the change to exceed radically the pain of just staying here, because now I have something to compare it to. This is a first step. This is huge for y'all. So with that, I'm going to be signing off. You guys have been super engaged in the comments here. Let me just go back and look at a last couple of comments. Yes. So somebody said, hey, I really hope I'm going to rewatch this. I think it was Carrie said that. So much to absorb. The replay will be in this Facebook group. Everything from all 5 days is all going to be in the Facebook group, right? And somebody said, because it doesn't pull over the name, but I think that was Dave, dude. Successful coach for sports coaches. Man, that is a beautiful vision. And Dave, think about this. I want you to imagine, how would you know you did that? What's happening? What are the conversations that you can envision in your brain and play the movie like you are there? Because here's something I know. We're going to dig into this a little deeper. But that hope and that positive imagination is powerful, right? Seeing it, envisioning it, you're going to focus and move forward, making it a reality. Totally agree. Okay. Somebody else here wrote, just work that is fulfilling. And I can't see who posted that. Now, if we were together, that is a very broad statement. Keep asking yourself, okay, if I had work that was fulfilling, what would that give me? Okay, seriously, it's not always an easy answer to some of these questions. I just want to share with you, I was with a client once, just to let you know. He shared with me, you know what, I want to come in and I want to lose weight. And we've been working on these big things. I'm like, okay, how does that fit in with, right, being on purpose and what we're trying to do with your company? He's like, no, dude, I don't feel good about it. I'm like, okay, well, let's park on that for a second. If you lost weight, what would that give you? Well, I'd feel better about myself. I'd have more energy. Okay, great. If you felt better about yourself and you had more energy, what would that give you? Can I tell you something? I never felt like we actually connected to something that was really at his core until I asked that. And I got to tell you guys, I was starting to feel obnoxious 11 times. On the 11th time I asked the question, it was complete silence for a minute. That is not comfortable for most people. I could tell. We were on the phone. I could not see the person's face. We weren't on Zoom. And I'm listening. And 30 seconds in, I'm not going to say a word. I know something's happening. 30 seconds in, I'm like, I'm still here, man. Just keep processing. And a minute into it, he broke down in tears, just talking about his life as a business person. And he was always out of shape and could never participate in his kid's life. He always made excuses, and he didn't want to admit it, but that last weekend, his grandkids were over. And they went for a hike, and he made an excuse not to join them because he knew he wouldn't enjoy it. And he's realizing he's repeating what he did when he was younger with his grandkids, and he vowed he'd never do it. And I got to tell you, we have to connect some of our goals to something that's specific and meaningful to us in order to have the momentum and the energy to bring that into something that we will take action on. That is what I have found for myself and everybody that I'm worked at. Okay? So some other things. Pastoring a multi-ethnic, multi-generational church. Dude, that is awesome. I know there is a ton behind that. I don't know who boasted. It just says Facebook user. And ask yourself, okay, think about that is happening a year from now. What would that give you? Keep asking yourself that question. I have found that it's usually at least 3 to 5 to land on something really important. And then we can start talking about the next week is what is it that makes that important? And ask yourself, if that all was in place, what would be the best part of that for you personally? Because we're going to take this work that you're doing and we're going to connect it directly to who you are, your big why, which is your purpose, what we need to do to get there, to do like what I'm seeing up here. Okay. And then we can worry about the how. Everybody gets all wrapped up on the how. Trust me, we're going to get to the how, but we got to get a couple other things in place first. So, all right, man. I agree. Donna said this. You guys are amazing. I hope we can all get together in a group. Man, I would love to do that. Man, I'm just looking at all the comments here. This is so awesome. All right. Yes, it was StreamYard. Okay. So many great comments. All right. With that, I said it was just going to be an hour. So if anybody has any questions, I'll stay on. If any questions pop in, I'm happy to stay here live. It doesn't look like anybody's dropped off. So that's pretty cool. So I'm just looking in the chat. And so if anybody has any questions, let me know. I'm happy to weigh in to the best that I can. So Joni said, let's see if I can show it. Can't wait to dive into this. So I'm excited. All right. Keep knocking them alive, John and your team. All right. I think that was Chris. Thank you. Somebody wants to be a better father, work on their own mental health, improve their self-confidence and self-worth. Who said that? Adam. Dude, the fact that you shared that is so awesome. I can so relate to you because when I started this journey, that's probably exactly, buddy, what I would have typed in to a group in a chat just like that. So I'm so excited to be part of this journey with you, brother. Okay. All right. What is my definition of success? Oh, I tell you what, Rick, we are going to dive into that. And here's my question for you, buddy, is what is your definition of your success? Okay. And I think it's an important question for us to answer, because if we don't define what success is for us, it's going to be defined for us. If that makes sense. If I said that right. I get tired and I mix words around, so you guys will have to forgive me, especially with a little bit of COVID brain. I think I did pretty good today though. So, all right. With that, you guys are awesome. I'm going to wrap it up, and we will be talking to you soon. See you guys.